Well, hi there, Mikela.
Hi there.
We are live on social media channels. I guess we can give people an opportunity to come into the room, although this is going to be um, recorded and it will be made into a podcast later. So I'll probably edit this part out for those people who will be listening via podcast. But anyway, I am Dr. Vanessa Enoch, and I am here interviewing one of my favorite people on the planet, my mini me, Mikela. Mikela is my daughter. She is also the owner of the Miserly Millennial. And I'm going to be just talking to Mikela a little bit about her journey and her business, and just a little bit about Mikela in general. I thought it was important that we do this podcast. This is the Bounce Back Better podcast, and we can be found on most platforms where you listen to podcasts. So add us on your favorite podcast channel, like us on your Facebook, Instagram, and anywhere else you see Cultural Impact LLC. Bounce Back Better is a broadcast of cultural impact. And so let's get started. Are you ready, Mikela?
Yes.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about you. Um, you want to tell our listening audience a little bit about who you are, aside from a business owner and that sort of thing? You want to just give us some background on who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Mikela. I am a 2016 graduate of Spelman College, which is where I got a degree in economics. So my background and interests have always kind of stemmed from and been surrounded by economics and finance, personal finance, and things like that. So I've been working now in the corporate finance space for about 5 years. I started off working at the Nielsen Company, where I did a rotational program that kind of introduced me to a lot of the different areas of corporate finance. And I ended up landing in a media pricing role, which is where I kind of priced or did pricing for some of Nielsen's top media and entertainment companies, where they were interested in buying our data or their services and products and things like that that we offered. So I spent about 3 years at Nielsen, and then ended up transitioning to the tech industry, where I started working in finance for Google, and still in a corporate finance capacity there, doing forecast planning and analysis, or FP&A as a lot of people call it, where I work for our ads finance business. So I've been working in personal or in corporate finance now for about 5 years, and decided a couple of years ago that I wanted to kind of launch my own thing and venture into the realm of personal finance, especially focused on building and creating wealth in minority communities, specifically Black and Hispanic, and other communities where historically we are there's a wealth gap. And so I wanted to focus on how I could be a part of closing that wealth gap, or educating people for, just letting them know that the wealth gap exists. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's a lot about you. And it sounds like you really have an affinity for math. I'm hearing a lot of numbers there. Is it the case that you have an affinity for math?
Yeah, so a little bit, yes, I guess you'd say, since I work with numbers on a regular basis, but that hasn't always been the case. I didn't enjoy math growing up. It was not, I guess, my strong suit, or I thought it wasn't my strong suit for a really long time. But I've since come to realize that it's hard for people in general to teach math, especially when you're teaching younger kids math. And so a lot of times, I hear people all the time say that they hate math and they can't grasp math, but I grew to appreciate math because it's one of the few things that's not really abstract. There's always an answer. You can always work to get to an answer. It just takes, practicing and figuring out what the best strategy is for it. And so I know that like prior to you kind of helping me with my math and even making me come to some of your college courses to get a better grasp and understanding of math, it wasn't really my strong suit, but I gained confidence in, working with numbers and things like that. And so now it's something that I do on a regular basis.
It's interesting, and it's always fun to think about. Um, I think you were in the fourth grade when I started making you come to my math class, my college math classes, and also to my econ courses, because you weren't doing as well as you normally would do in your courses in math. And I remember taking you to my econ courses and my basic college math courses, and having you go up to the board and work problems just like my students would do. And I think it actually gave them a lot more confidence to see a young person wrestle through and struggle through doing those math problems and answering some of those questions. But I also know that it built your confidence as well. So much so that you found a passion in an area that you had once struggled in,
Yeah.
which is, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say definitely with econ, with math, it was more about trying to like build my skill set. But with econ, it definitely was my first like introduction to economics. And I think that like helped even when I took my first econ class in high school, either in 11th or 12th grade. And I was like passing the class with flying colors, and my teacher didn't know why I knew so much about econ. But like I kept like a 99 or 100%, I think, in that class. So when it came time to choose what my major was going to be in college, I originally went in thinking that I was going to be a biology major. I wanted to be a doctor. And then I like sat down and started thinking about like where my actual passions lie. Like I was passionate about helping people, and still even after I switched my major to econ, was looking at the ways that I could possibly still be a doctor with an economics degree. And I started researching whether or not people who majored in econ did well on the MCAT. So I switched my major before I even, started the college courses or my college courses when I enrolled in college. But definitely my first introduction in like elementary and middle school helped me exceed and excel in my classes in high school and then in college too.
I love the fact that you are as young as you are. You are 27 years old, and I think it is an awesome thing to be talking to a young person um, who once struggled in an area where you now excel. I want to encourage parents to share this broadcast with their young people who might be in college or struggling through high school coursework in a particular area, and let them know that it is possible to overcome challenges. I remember when you were younger and attending the School for Creative and Performing Arts, I was one of the parents who stuffed the envelopes of report cards. And when I was stuffing those envelopes, I became very discouraged to see that most of the kids in the school were struggling with math. And, I wondered what is being done about this. And ultimately, as a parent, I took it into my own hands to do something to change that scenario and make sure that you were able to do well in your coursework. And, I think it is important that parents get involved and, help their children along. But let me ask you, Mikela, what is it that helped you, aside from, showing up to a college classroom where I was teaching the course, what kinds of things help build your confidence in your area, your specialty, finance or econ? What kinds of things led to your successes?
Yeah, so I definitely think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me in those areas and in those fields. And so, and that I know is the case for a lot of different industries and a lot of different fields, but pretty much inspired to kind of be one of those people that broke through in those underrepresented fields and helped other people that look like me. So still tying in again my passion for wanting to help people back when I thought that I wanted to be a doctor, and recognizing and realizing that there wasn't a lot of people in finance or even in econ that looked like me or looked like the people around me, and recognizing that a lot of times leads to our communities not feeling confident to take control of their finances, or even feeling overwhelmed when they, hear financial terms or economic terms and stuff like that. And so that pushed me to make sure that I understood what was going on so that I could pass along that information to other people too.
That's awesome. And let me again just let everyone know who might be joining us now. I am here talking to one of my favorite people on the planet, Mikela. This is my daughter, who is the owner of the Miserly Millennial. She also works in corporate finance with Google. And so I thought it was important to talk to Mikela today for a number of reasons. For one, because she works in tech in Silicon Valley, and also because Mikela started her own business and she's only 27 years old. But there is also something really awesome that Mikela is embarking on right now. And Mikela, I want you to talk a little bit about what is happening in your life over the next 30 days that you're really excited about.
Yeah, so I'm buying a house. I'm under contract for a house now, which I'm really excited about because it'll be the biggest investment pretty much that I've made up until this point. It's something that I've wanted to do for a really, really long time, and kind of set a goal for myself to do it in 2022 next year. I knew that I definitely wanted to close on my first property before I turned 30, but I was trying to be a little overly ambitious and, set a goal for myself to do it when I turn 28, which would be next year. And so like a lot of us in the tech industry, I've been working from home now for the last year and a half, pretty much. And made plans when we did finally have to go back into the office to find an apartment, and then in a couple of months start looking at purchasing my first property. And I decided that it didn't make a ton of sense to rent for the next 6 months, 6 to 8 months, when I could just embark on the journey to buy a house instead. I think I was a little bit nervous, even though I am a personal finance person. And, I've kind of read about the ins and outs of purchasing a home and what that entails and what that looks like. But even in knowing kind of what that looks like, was still a little bit intimidated by the process. And so, I was nervous about, I know how much money approximately I'm going to need for a down payment. I know that I'm also going to have to think about closing costs, but all of that stuff really overwhelmed me, especially given what the housing market looks like right now. So it's really competitive. And, I just felt like I'd just keep getting outbid and not be able to secure a place of my own, a place that I actually liked and all of that. But I was able to, less than 2 weeks after starting working with my realtor, go under contract for a brand new construction home. So it's still being built, which is why the process is, going to take until for the next 30 days. I won't be officially closed on it or anything. So it is still being built. I'm super excited because I did not expect that my first house would be a new construction or anything that was being built from the ground up. But really just kind of got blessed in that it happened the way that it did. And it is something that I'm really, really excited about. I'm excited to be a first-time homeowner, also still nervous at the same time about what being a homeowner will look like, because up until now, of course, I've been renting, I've been in apartments. So when things break, I just call the maintenance man and they come and fix it. Like, my bills are not all going to be grouped into one utility bill or anything like that. So yeah, I'm super excited, but yes, I'm buying a house.
Okay, so I'm sure there were some challenges that came along the way with purchasing a home. I heard you mention, first and foremost, I heard you mention that you had to come up with a down payment. So tell us a little bit about how you came up with a down payment to be able to purchase or to even build your first home.
Yeah, so I've been saving just over the last year. I've been blessed to be in a position where I do have a little bit of extra resources that I can sit to the side for down payment and kind of all of the expenses that pop up along the way. But also, part of my compensation package in working in big tech, which is also common across other companies, is I have equity compensation. And so I, had shares of Google stock basically that is released over a certain time period. And I hadn't touched those shares. I hadn't done anything with the equity compensation that I've received for the last 2 years. And so basically it's grown, it's accumulated, and I decided that in addition to the savings, the cash savings that I had, saved up, that I'd also sell a couple of my shares of stock to also use that for the down payment and closing costs and whatever else came with it. And originally I was kind of sad that I was getting rid of my shares or had to sell any of my shares, because it's been really cool just to watch them grow. And I know leaving it alone as a long-term investment is going to be great, just because it's a investment that's growing over time. But then I started thinking about it and realizing that it would just be basically a shift in the equity that I have in general in my investments. So I'm selling my shares. Yes, I'm selling my stock, and that's equity that I have in the company. But I'm basically transferring that equity into, the house that I'm purchasing. So it'll go from equity that I have in my portfolio in the form of stocks to equity that will now be in my house instead, which I'm excited about because it's my property, it's my land. So I definitely think it's worth, selling it so that I can make that purchase.
Definitely. So it is an investment. And, when you talk about transferring equity from one portfolio to another, um, explain a little bit about what that looks like. How do you buy equity?
Yeah. So do you mean like how do you buy the stocks, or what is that? What do I mean when I say
Talk about
transferring the
Yes, exactly. What do you mean? Explain to people what you mean when you talk about transferring equity. A lot of people won't understand that term. You're in
Yeah.
finance, but not everybody is. So go ahead and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so equity in the most oversimplified terms is like something that you own. So one of the first formulas that we learned in accounting is assets minus liabilities equals owner's equity, or you can say it the opposite way: owner's equity is your assets minus your liabilities. So my house is going to be an asset that I'm investing in. The liability is the loan that I'm taking out to cover the house. And so once I finish paying off that loan, all of the money that I've paid into that house will be my equity. I will own, however much of that house over time. And so that's basically my ownership, my stake in my house itself. For my equity compensation through my job, that's basically just saying that I own a piece of Google. Now it's a really, 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 really small piece comparatively to like how big Google is, just because Google is a really massive company. So it's kind of like throwing a cotton ball in the Pacific Ocean is how much, the piece that I own in Google itself, but I do still own a piece of that. I'm a stakeholder in Google. So it's just like if you were to go and buy stock in any company, even if it's $20 worth of stock, you now are a partial owner of that company. You have equity in that company. And that is the case for any public company that offers shares. Shares, again, are just, the amount of stock that you have or the amount of equity that you have in a company. That's just saying that you are a partial owner as well. So I took the equity or the amount of equity that I have in Google, the piece that I own at Google, and basically am investing that into the equity that I'll have in my house.
Awesome. Awesome. So, I know you met with some challenges in the process of purchasing your own home, and um, I want you to talk a little bit about some of the things that just people might run into, young people when they're purchasing their first home. Some lessons learned. Tell me a little bit about your lessons learned.
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is look to see whatever state you're in, if there is a program for a first time home buyer. That is something that I had been looking forward to taking advantage of when I did finally purchase my house, just because being here from Ohio, I know that there are a number of programs that you can participate in, no matter what your income is or anything like that, where they will literally like pay whatever the down payment is for you. And so that's a really awesome program or thing that exists across a lot of different states. Most of the states, I think, have first time home buyer programs. And so a lot of times the down payment is a big hurdle that people have to overcome when they do finally decide to purchase a house. I always hear people say, like, or talk down on people who rent their homes, like, oh, you're renting for this amount of money when you could purchase and be paying this amount in mortgage and it's so much cheaper. But it doesn't really factor in kind of the barriers that you have to overcome when you're purchasing a house, and the down payment is a really big barrier. It's difficult for people to save up, a significant amount of money to put towards a down payment. A lot of times, I think it used to be the standard that you needed like 20% down to purchase a home, which isn't necessarily the case anymore. A lot of times you can put like 3 to 5% down and purchase a home. But depending on how much that home costs, that could still be a significant amount of money. And even $5,000 to $10,000 is not easy for people to save up to be able to afford a down payment on a house. And so that's the first thing that I would, say everyone should look into when they're going to buy a house. I couldn't take advantage of a first time home buyer program because the house that I'm buying is in Georgia. And I wasn't eligible with the criteria that Georgia had for a first time home buyer program. But if I was purchasing in Ohio, then I would have been. So I definitely would say do that. The
Well,
second
talk
thing.
about a little bit before you go into the second thing. No, we discovered in the midst of this, because there might be some other people watching in Georgia, we did learn that there are programs for people in certain disciplines. I know that my niece would have qualified for a program. I think you heard that program explained. You want to talk a little bit about that one?
Yeah, so in certain cities in different states, again, they'll have like special programs or whatever that you can take advantage of or participate in to help you buy a house as well. And so the one that you're talking about specifically was in the city of Atlanta in Fulton County. And it's a program for people in certain disciplines. I think it was like nurses, teachers, police officers, basically like public servants. They had a specific program, even in addition to kind of the overall Georgia first time home buyer program, where they would not only give down payment assistance, I think they also covered your closing costs as well. And so that's another big thing when you're buying a house that you'll have to fork out quite a bit of money for is your closing costs as well. And so, yeah, the different cities also will have specific programs that you can participate in. That program, I know specifically, you had to have been a resident of Georgia or Atlanta for like 6 months, I think. And then there's like a minimum credit score. There is income thresholds, like you can't make over a certain amount. So there's a few stipulations, but I think in most instances, most of the people that they were targeting for like public servants and stuff like that, they fit in that criteria. But definitely look into whether or not even your specific city has other programs that you can take advantage of in the places where you're looking to live as well. So like you said, my cousin would have been able to take advantage of that program, but she hadn't lived in Atlanta for long enough to be able to do it. Otherwise, she could have been fresh out of college, a brand new college graduate with a brand new house. But just look out and see what the stipulations are for that too. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. What kind of advice would you give to other young people who might want to purchase their own homes? And then I do want you to go back to your lessons learned, but any advice on purchasing their first home?
Yeah, I would definitely say do a lot of research, and I mean, do a lot of research on the home buying process in general. And there's a lot of really helpful tools out there, whether it's on, if you're just doing a Google search or a YouTube search, they will break down the home buying process and the different steps of the home buying process in a way that's simple and easy to understand. I always like graphics and visuals that help break down what processes look like. And then you could get into the nitty gritty and read a little bit more about, the steps and all of that. But definitely do research before you start embarking on the process, just to see if it's something that you're ready for. And it's okay if you're not ready for it like right at that moment, but the best thing for you to do is to start researching so that you know whether or not you are or aren't ready, and then you can start taking the steps or doing what you need to do to get ready or begin embarking on the process to buy it. So definitely do research on the process in general. The other thing that I would say is to research the area that you're looking to actually purchase in. So when I would find like a house that I, thought that I might want to put an offer on, or even when I was searching, I've always been like this, even when I'm renting, I'll look up to see, what the crime rate in the area is. I'll look up to see how good the school districts in the area are. I don't have any kids or anything like that, but as I think about an investment, a property or something that I'm investing in long term, there is a really strong possibility that I might have kids as I'm living there. I want to make sure that they're able to go to good schools. I even look up like where the closest sex offender is in the area. Like as a single woman, that's something that's important to me. So it takes just a lot of research and looking a lot of different stuff up just to see if it's something that you're ready for, and then also looking at the area that you're actually interested in investing in. The other thing that I would say is if you're working with a real estate agent, which most people do, look up and research realtors in your area, look at their reviews. If you're able to determine how many homes they've sold or anything like that, do all of that due diligence too, just to make sure that you're working with the best possible person that will be able to be an advocate for you and, get you in your dream home in a timely fashion. So that's another big thing.
So I want to go back to lessons learned, especially because you just mentioned working with the realtor. Any other lessons learned in your own process that you can pass on to another first-time home buyer?
Yeah, so a big thing, like I mentioned before, that The real estate market right now is really competitive. It's a really hot market. Like if you were to reach out to a realtor today and tell them that you're interested in buying a home, they're going to give you this big spiel about how competitive the market is and how hard it is to get a house right now. And they're not wrong. As like an economist, I went, of course, and did my own research about the real estate market right now. And what's happening is there's low inventory of houses. So there's not a lot of, houses and stuff available. And there's a lot of demand. And so that means a lot of people are interested in buying a house. Something wrong?
Oh my God, yes. But oh my God. Yeah, we need to revisit this broadcast. I just got a message, but let's revisit the broadcast, and we're going to talk a little bit more about your business when we come back to it. So let's chat about it later, okay?
Alrighty.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.